Hey y'all, I had the opportunity to make my sister a dress for a TUBI movie premiere she's in called About Him, so we're gonna go ahead and hop into it. I started off by getting her measurements, her neck, her bust to points, her waist, her hips, and her waist to floor length. She was getting hyped because that waist was snatched, honey, okay?
You want, yeah, I want it to be long. Like I want
depending
it to,
on how far out
yeah.
you want it to go.
Not yeah.
You
maybe
want it
like,
to be out?
Maybe like where that 47 is at.
So like 47.
Yeah, I want to be a little flare, but I don't want it to be completely too much.
Okay, so we'll say 47 then. What the hell? What are your knees? 25. What's the knees? 20. Okay. I was taking her arm measurements, like arm length, because I thought we were going to do a dress with sleeves, but we ended up doing a two-piece set. So a dress ended up turning into a two-piece set. So this is really a two-piece set that I'm sewing up. So here I am sketching. She wanted a sweetheart bustier neckline dress with mesh and like a high collar, and we're doing like a mermaid style skirt. So I'm sketching and doing the math to grade each pattern. So I have my muslin, my brown mesh. I got about a yard of my brown mesh. I got two zippers. They're two different sizes. Pins to use during her fitting. Red stretch fabric. Made sure to get invisible thread and some more red thread. It's all purpose. And the super cute rhinestone hook and eyes for the high collar, like high neck part of the two-piece. Now this is not a full out tutorial. I'm really kind of just showing you guys like what I did, because this is my first time making a mermaid skirt or a bustier. So I'm kind of just showing you guys my journey of creating this two-piece for the first time. But if you guys want more in-depth tutorials on how to do each like techniques that I used in this video, then I will. But this is more of like a follow along. So now I went ahead and I folded my muslin in half, and I went ahead and made my marks. I'm marking my waist, hips, and floor length measurements. And this is how I started to create my mermaid skirt. And then I'm just going ahead and cutting this out and sewing the sides together, just sewing it all together. After that, we did our fitting with the skirt and it came out really, really good. I did a few adjustments, but this is how it came out with the muslin. Then I'm taking my French curve ruler. I actually got this from Joann's and I really like it. This is great for using for like your like armholes and like any like curves that you have in a pattern. So I'm going to be going ahead and marking my measurements and basically grading out my bustier pattern. I have a bustier sweetheart draping video right here if you guys want to watch it, but I'm taking these pattern pieces and I'm grading them with the measurements that I got from my sister. And it was such trial and error. I ended up like not using two of the panels on the bustier because I actually needed to go down smaller. It ended up being bigger. So this was just a lot of like trial and error, me like adjusting the measurements and stuff. You just really have to, when it comes to like pattern making and stuff, it literally is trial and error. That is why I did everything on the muslin first before I even started playing with the real fabric, because honey, fabric costs some money, okay? And we don't want to just be playing around and mess it up. So that's what I went ahead and did here. Then I went ahead and took my sheer mesh halter like high neck pattern piece and I am tracing that piece out and I'm grading that as well with her sizes. And you want to remember to do all of this on the fold. So when I open up the halter mesh pattern, it's gonna be one whole piece. So after I got all my measurements, I went ahead and pinned all my pattern pieces together. Now this was the first trial with the bustier. I hadn't tried the bustier on her yet, but after I sewed it up, like I said, I ended up taking two of these panels out because we didn't need them. I needed to go down a size. But as you guys can see here, I am sewing up these panels so that way I can do that first fitting, and yeah. And I didn't end up getting a first fitting panel. I didn't end up getting a first fitting for the bustier, but like I said, I took out two of the panels and it ended up fitting her perfectly. And this is what it looks like in full. I had just too many panels. So next we ended up going to the fabric store after we made sure everything was fitted. This is when we went to the fabric store to pick out the fabric that she wanted. These are the reds that we came across, and then we ended up finding some brown mesh that we liked, and this brown mesh just matched her perfectly. So that is what you guys seen at the beginning of the video. And yeah, this is what we went with. After that, I went ahead and started taking the mermaid muslin pattern, and I basically cut out my pattern piece, my fabric with the pattern piece. Y'all can see my daughter right there. But yeah, I just went ahead and put the pattern piece on the floor. I needed as much space. Now this fabric didn't end up being as wide as I needed it to be, but it ended up working out because, like I said, she didn't want her like bottom panel to be super like long where she couldn't walk, so it just ended up working out. I cut out the front and the back panels, and I did everything on the folds. So again, when I open it up, I have 2 whole panels.
I'm trying to take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product to put in my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth. They tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the
Okay, so here is where I am adding my invisible zipper into the back of her skirt, the back skirt panel. You are going to need some type of invisible zipper foot. This is the one I have. I really want to get the little skinny one, but this is the one that I am using for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and insert the invisible zipper. I ended up first sewing all the way down on the back panel of my mermaid skirt, all the way down to how far the zipper goes. And then I ended up placing my invisible zipper on top of that seam. I'm pinning on each side, and then I'm sewing, and then what I'm gonna do is just I'm gonna seam rip the middle, so I have my invisible zipper. And if you guys want me to do a full out like how to insert an invisible zipper video, I will. I think I had one before and I got rid of it, but I'll do an updated one on there's different methods, so I'll do a few different methods on how to add an invisible zipper. I did this to both the back of the mermaid skirt and onto the back of the bustier. And yeah, so here I am sewing down basically underneath the teeth, so that way it's super clean and it just looks good and it's like closer to the edge.
I'm painting my pain, all them thoughts even yours. I give it a pipe, she told me I'm generous, moving real diligent. Blue bands on me, earning my stripes. I say how I feel, I go where I grow. I bag up a fortune, it's all for the sport, I'm feeding my soul. Been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product to put in my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own.
So after that was finished, I went ahead and cut out my bustier pattern pieces with my real fabric, and then I'm cutting out my interfacing with those bustier pieces because I wanted the bustier to be more, just have more stability. So I'm adding interfacing into each panel, and here I have a fake cupcake that my daughter gave me. She's just so sweet. But yeah, so I was getting my cupcake here. So I have a full out tutorial on how to add interfacing to your fabric, to your garments. So you guys can check that video out right here if you want to learn, you know, how to do that. It's really easy, really simple. It's like a step-by-step of me trying out different interfacings and actually showing you guys how to do it. So then I was trying to figure out what needles I was going to use for sewing this bustier. I have this stretch twin needle. I have this jersey ballpoint needle, this extra wide twin needle, which I didn't end up using, and this stretch twin needle. So I ended up using the ballpoint needle for this project. So I ended up using this ballpoint needle for this project because I needed my stuff to be stretched and I didn't need anything to rip. We're going to be cutting up our sheer mesh halter part, and I'm just taking my brown mesh and I'm going to be placing my muslin pattern on top of the brown mesh. I'm placing it on the fold and I am cutting it out like so. And as you guys can see here on the bustier, I have added my zipper. So I'm just zipping all of this up. I ended up cutting off a part of the zipper because the zipper was too long. And what I end up doing is when I cut it, I just like burned the edges of the zipper. So we ended up trying this on and the bustier fit her fine. So now I am adding, I'm going to be pinning my mesh to the bustier. And with this, you want to pin as much as you need to, because mesh can be kind of slippery and you want to make sure it stays in place. So I'm just pinning. So when I take it to the sewing machine, nothing gets out of place. And I'm really taking my time with this part, you guys. Just take your time. Like I said, everything is trial and error. You're gonna have to take stuff apart, put it back together. Like, it's not gonna be a one-time thing. So don't let like designing and sewing and stuff scare you, because you're always gonna have to take stuff apart and put it back together. So before you take it to the sewing machine, make sure it's all, you know, pinned together. And then you're gonna take your invisible thread for this part, and you're going to use this to sew your mesh onto your top part of your bustier. And for this part, you're basically this whole entire project, I used a very narrow like zigzag stitch, because you want to still be able to like move, and zigzag is like for stretch fabrics. So I just used a narrow zigzag for that bustier top. So I did end up having to go back to Joann's and get lining, because we forgot lining. So I ended up getting this really nice red stretch lining from Joann's. And I'm not doing the lining pattern by pattern. I'm actually just doing one whole lining pattern. I don't know if this is the correct way to do it, but this is just the way that I'm doing it to hide the lining. And I ended up liking how it came out. So I'm literally just cutting out one whole pattern piece for my that looks like my bustier, and then I am going to be sewing this lining on top of my inner facing, so that we get like a nice, clean, high quality look inside, professional look inside the garment, because you always want your garment to look nice in the inside as well. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm pinning the lining. I'm pinning the lining, and then we're just gonna go ahead and sew. And you do want to pin the lining on top of the mesh, because it's gonna be like a sandwich. So that's why I ended up doing the mesh first and then doing the lining. Moving on to the high neck collar part. So I am folding this fabric in half, and then I'm folding it over as well. And what I'm going to be doing is cutting out the measurements of her neck, so the width and then the length. And then you have your high neck collar parts. And you can sew down the sides, and then you have your collar. But I'm not gonna sew down my sides, because I'm putting in a hook and eye, and that is what is basically gonna close up the back of her collar. And the reason why I folded it so many times is because I wanted her collar to be thick. I didn't want it to be like super thin. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm folding it in half. I'm sewing up that bottom portion, and then I'm sewing up that side portion. And then I'm actually flipping it, because you want to flip it inside out, so that way it looks clean. So my camera battery ended up going dead, and I missed some portions of this video, but I ended up sewing on the collar onto the mesh. And then I went ahead and put like a lining onto the waistline, as you guys can see, so that I can clean up the skirt, the top of the skirts. I hemmed the bottom of the skirts, and I went ahead and added the hook and eyes. If you guys want a separate video on all these techniques, I will do one. But this is how the dress came out. I think I did a pretty good job for my first time. I would adjust like my sweetheart's like curve a little bit more. And if I would have had more time, I would have fixed my neckline a little bit more. We ended up rushing toward the end. And I'm going to practice more on my hook and eyes because, again, this was my first time doing hook and eyes. But like I said, I think I did pretty okay. This is how it looked. We didn't get any video, but I think the dress looked amazing on her. Let me know what you guys think about this video, about this dress, or two pieces, really a two-piece, in the comments below. And I will see you guys at the top.
But what do I know? All them thoughts that you have, even yours. I'm paying my pain over chords. Good reward, I'm earning my stripes. I give it a pipe, I'm generous. I say how I feel, I go where I grow. Don't tell me that love is for me. I'm here on my own, I'm feeding my soul. Been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree.